One of the most famous revolutionaries who helped to inspire rebellion and uprising across many lands was Che Guevara. He today is seen as a symbol of defiance, but for centuries before, there have been people who questioned the status quo and government of many different countries. In France, during the French Revolution, anyone who dared to question the revolutionary actions were often sent to the scaffold where the guillotine stood on top. But in the Philippines, there was a man who was considered one of their greatest heroes, and he was a writer who today is considered a national treasure. He was part of the Filipino propaganda movement that called for reform for the colony which was under Spanish control. However, Jose Rizal was brutally executed for his actions. Join us today as we look at the execution of Jose Rizal, and remember to support our channel. Please make sure to subscribe. Jose Rizal was the son of a prosperous landowner, and he was educated in Manila, but then also at the University of Madrid. He was considered an excellent medical student. However, he soon became more devoted to the political situation inside of his homeland of the Philippines, which was under Spanish rule at the time. But he also trained in ophthalmology, and he was inspired to help his mother's failing eyesight. He trained under some brilliant surgeons and studied in Paris, but it became too expensive, and he then continued studying the eye in Germany, where life was a lot cheaper. He studied at the University of Heidelberg as an assistant, and he practiced ophthalmology, then around the world, including in Hong Kong. He was known for being a very skilled doctor, and patients often came a long distance away to be treated by Jose Rizal. He even helped his mother's eyesight and removed a cataract in her eye. But during his studies in Europe, he spent a lot of time writing and working on his first novel, Noli Me Tangere. But at the end of the 1800s, Spain was struggling to control the colonies under her control. The Philippines had been under Spanish rule for around 300 years, and the head of state was the Governor-General, and he was appointed by the Spanish king, and also the civil head of the church. There was a huge amount of censorship by the Spanish, and they controlled commerce and also the contact Filipino people had with people from other lands. Many people believed in the Philippines that they were living in almost medieval Spain. The people were treated as inferiors to the Spanish, and as a young man, Jose Rizal failed to recognise a lieutenant of the civil guard in the dark, and for this he was beaten very badly. His family also suffered under Spanish rule, and his mother at one point was forced to walk 20 miles to a prison, where she was then acquitted of a false charge invented by an angry cousin against her. Jose Rizal in his writing had been inspired by what was happening in the Philippines. His first novel was published in Berlin in 1886, and he sent the book to the Governor-General and the Archbishop of the Philippines. When the book got to the Philippines, it caused scandal. Professors denounced the book as heretical and subversive. They agreed that the book attacked the integrity of Spain and their government. But Rizal became infamous in the eyes of the Spanish, but he was very popular with the Filipino people. Despite knowing it was very dangerous for him to return home, he went back in 1887 to his hometown and practiced ophthalmology and medicine for around a year. He gained further fame and was considered a miracle worker who could actually cure the blind. But he received many death threats from his enemies, and in 1888 he left the Philippines under pressure from the government. He then continued to travel and write, and he became known as a leader of Filipino students and activities in Europe, and they formed the propaganda movement. These reformers would write their ideas and publish them. They were then sent to the Philippines in letters. Jose Rizal continued to write controversial novels, and his next book directly addressed how society needed to change. Further accolades and infamy came, and Rizal's family were then banished from the Philippines. He was upset by this, as he knew his work was causing issues for his family. Despite having a practice in Hong Kong, he longed to return home, but he knew, as his family did, that there was a good chance he would be killed. But he yet again returned in June 1892. He wrote in one letter saying, "The step that I have taken or about to take is undoubtedly very perilous, and I need not say that I have pondered it a great deal. I realise that everyone is opposed to it, but I realise also that hardly anyone knows what is going on in my heart. I prefer to face death cheerfully and gladly, give my life to free so many innocent persons from such unjust persecutions. I wish to show those who deny his patriotism that we know how to die for our duty and our convictions. What matters death if one dies for what one loves, for native land and adored beings? Whilst home he set up the Lina Filipina, who were not to incite rebellion, but to encourage Filipino prosperity. He was implicated in rebellions and was deported to Dapitan. Here he built a school and a hospital, and also helped out with farming. He was exiled for 4 years, but this coincided with the Philippine Revolution and its breakout. Rizal condemned the uprising, but he was made the honorary president, and his name was used as a cry for liberty. He said that peaceful protesting was a better way than shedding blood, and he said, "I consider myself happy for being able to suffer a little for a cause which I believe to be sacred. I believe further that in any undertaking, the one more suffers for it, the surer its success. If this be fanaticism, may God pardon me, but my poor judgment does not see it as such." However, whilst he was en route to Cuba via Spain, as he had offered to help victims of yellow fever, he was arrested in Barcelona. He was then sent back to Manila to stand trial, and was implicated in the revolution. He was left unchained, and had many chances to escape, but he refused to do this. Rizal was imprisoned at Fort Santiago, and he was tried before a court-martial, being accused of sedition, conspiracy and rebellion. He was found guilty of all 3 charges, and for this was sentenced to death. A day before his execution, Jose Rizal's mother had asked the authorities to have his body placed under her family's custody. This was later granted by the mayor of Manila. But he was scheduled to be executed on the 30th of December 1896. A squad of Filipino soldiers of the Spanish army had been gathered, and they were backed up by a force of regular Spanish army soldiers who were ready to shoot Jose Rizal if the order was disobeyed. A Spanish army surgeon general asked to take Rizal's pulse before his execution, and it was said to have been normal and not raised. He was very calm as he faced the firing squad, and there were also many witnesses. He was then turned and stood away from the death squad. His last words were, "It is finished," and then he was executed by the firing squad. In August 1898 he was exhumed from a grave, and it was found he had not been buried inside of a coffin, but instead had been wrapped in cloth before being dumped in the grave. The ground was not blessed either, and he was then exhumed and his remains were taken to the Rizal household, where they were washed. They were then placed in an ivory urn and remained in the household. But then the public were allowed to see them, before he was reinterred in a grave which was more fitting. Today Jose Rizal is considered a national hero of the Philippines, and a man who defied the idea of Spanish rule in his country, and he is seen as one of the greatest Filipinos in history. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.